The chair is back. What, did you expect something more funny, creative? Like, I saw Captain America Brave New World. I had the most rock bottom of expectations that I could possibly have had. And I still came out of the movie just feeling demoralized, depressed. It didn't help. I went with the same two people that I saw the first Avengers with, my dad and brother. And they, like, seeing them depleted over this movie. Like, my dad actually had hope for, like, maybe Avengers Doomsday will work out. That this movie completely took that out of him. My brother said that this was the worst MCU movie ever made. Then I asked him about the Marvels, and he's like, it's on par with the Marvels. I agree. Captain America Brave New World is on par with the Marvels and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. If it isn't the worst MCU film, because we keep saying the worst. I'm trying not to, but it's like everything you see is like the worst at the time. Like you see the Marvels and you go, that was the worst MCU movie ever made, and then you don't see it for a year. It kind of gets out of your mind, and then you see the next Marvel movie and you're like, this is the worst I've ever seen, I think. But it's just the most recent thing. I mean, if we could watch all of these movies together, maybe we could judge what is truly the worst. But that's just something to say about the quality, like it's a race for the worst, and maybe you forget just how bad it's gotten, and then you see it, and it's just that bad. And all of us came away with the same feeling. I mean, we walked out of the theater, and there was a group of, like, teenage boys who were watching the movie, and I heard one of them say as we walked out, that was the worst movie ever made. And it's, like, once again, just a race to the bottom, but, like, all of us had our certain, like, hope or expectation for, like, what Marvel could be going forward. Talking about my group, my dad was hoping that maybe Avengers Doomsday would turn out. My brother wanted to know what they were going to do with Spider-Man. We all came out with the same feeling, and it's a feeling that I had. They need to stop making Marvel movies. I had an expectation of, I guess just because I had seen Inside Out 2 and I had seen how quickly Disney turned around one of their projects. I guess when I was hearing the same thing being said behind the scenes of Marvel, I wanted to be optimistic and think if we just get through these bad projects, then we can get to something good again. They should have shelved this film. That's how damaging it is. That's how insane it is. And I see some people who are like, it's just mid. It's just okay. I don't know what movie you watched that I didn't, but I think it's going to be one of those things where if you watch it again or give it some time to sit, you're going to think that this is the worst thing ever, because that's what it is if you actually analyze it. And my dad said something that broke my heart. He said, you know what? There's not going to be superhero movies in a couple years. And my brother echoed the same thing. And it broke me, but immediately my mind went, you know, they're right. That's how bad it's gotten. Like, they cannot keep surviving. They can't keep doing this. This movie made me say, and it's added to it because, you know, I don't think Thunderbolts looks good. I'm not thrilled about Fantastic Four. Maybe I'm in the minority. I know that most people aren't excited for it. Our little internet spheres are talking about Fantastic Four. The mainstream is not talking about that movie. It made me say, I don't want to see another MCU movie. I don't want them to make a Spider-Man 4. I don't want them to make Avengers Doomsday because all they're going to do is ruin Robert Downey Jr. They just need to be done. I want them to not make any more of these and stop damaging this reputation. It made me say, while I was watching it, I wish I had never seen this movie. I have to watch these movies because it's my job as a critic to watch the blockbusters. But I wish that I hadn't, because after I've been enjoying things like Marvel Rivals and the old comics, this just took it all out of me and it just demoralized me. So I've talked for like a 5-minute preamble of how this movie, but how did the movie make you feel, Jester? A 5-minute preamble on this. I'll say this just doesn't make me even feel like doing a big jokey review or anything. It just made me really depressed. This is bad. It's like the MCU has become Sony's Spider-Man without a Spider-Man movies. So I have my notes to talk about what is in this film. It's gonna be difficult to describe the plot. I made a chart here for you all just to try to figure out what the plot is. basically, like, you've got a Captain America movie without Steve Rogers. You've got Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson that you need to sell the audience on. They already wrecked his character in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Get to that in a second. And it's like, okay, who's going to be the supporting cast of Sam Wilson? What's this movie going to be? And apparently what they decided to do is make a sequel to The Incredible Hulk 2008, a movie that the MCU seemed content to forget for like a decade. Like, that's what this movie is. It's a Hulk movie without the Hulk, with Captain America that's not Steve Rogers. That's what this movie is. It's like Kevin Feige started to feel bad that there were loose ends from the Hulk 2008 that he never tied up and wanted to go back to that. So, this is perhaps the most... I know you won't believe me. I know you won't believe me because it's always one-upping each other. It's always worse than the last. But this is the most nonsensical plot that I've ever seen in a Marvel MCU movie. It's like with the Marvels, I can at least tell you, well, it's about the female version of Ronan the Accuser trying to get revenge on Captain Marvel because she caused a civil war that destroyed the Kree inadvertently, and all three characters are switching bodies Freaky Friday style. I can at least explain that much to you. It is like when I was watching like the trailers of this movie, I couldn't discern a plot, and it is hard to describe the plot of this movie. The best I can describe it as that, and this is what I tried to figure it out in my head about like halfway to 2/3 into it, is the leader wants revenge on Thunderbolt Ross, and so stuff happens. That's the plot of the film in the most basic way that I can describe it, and Sam Wilson is trying to figure it out and stop the leader and everything. So that's the best way I can describe this plot. But boy, it is crazy. How it actually plays out is Sam Wilson is Captain America, and he's friends with Isaiah Bradley, who is a guy who, as a black man, he was experimented on by the government, locked away for 30 years, let out, and now he's friends with Sam Wilson, who he doesn't approve of working for the government. And so Sam Wilson, for some reason, invites him to the White House at an event that Thunderbolt Ross is going to give, talking about this new substance that they found called adamantium. Please don't bring Wolverine into this universe. And so he invites Isaiah Bradley there, and while they're there, there's some music plays, and the music triggers Isaiah Bradley, who somehow has a gun and got that past security. I don't know if I saw him grab it from someone, but somehow he has a gun, shoots at Thunderbolt Ross, but doesn't kill him intentionally. They throw Isaiah Bradley in jail without questioning him, so it would seem. So now it's like there's so many ripoffs from other Captain America movies in this. It's a ripoff of Civil War, where a friend of the lead character is accused of being an assassin, and they're locked away, have to get him out. So basically, Thunderbolt Ross, after wanting to work with Sam Wilson and working for a long time, wanting him to restart the Avengers, completely cold turkeys him after this event. And so Sam Wilson starts his own investigation on this, and he's going with his sidekick Joaquin. And then stuff happens. It's almost like this movie doesn't have a linear cause and effect, because I was like, okay, so as we find out later, the leader wanted Isaiah to shoot at Thunderbolt Ross to try to trigger the Hulk, because as we find out later, I don't care about spoilers, Harrison Ford has been taking pills from the leader because he thought he was dying. The leader, he kept the leader alive to make these pills for himself, but the leader has been inserting higher and higher levels of gamma radiation into the pills, so he's going to turn into the Hulk. So it seems like the entire plot of the leader is to transform Thunderbolt Ross into the Hulk. Meanwhile, Thunderbolt Ross is trying to make a deal with the Japanese government that has to do with adamantium. The leader is trying to bring out the Hulk and reveal, and force Thunderbolt Ross to reveal that he originally did black market deals with developing weapons to break down relationships between the US and Japan, because he wants to destroy Thunderbolt Ross's reputation. That's all he really wants. And meanwhile, Giancarlo Esposito is around, and he was an assassin at one point, and he shows up out of nowhere, and they go to like a warehouse, kind of like they do at Winter Soldier, and they find out everything there from a computer like Winter Soldier, and Joaquin, who's like the new Falcon, gets injured at one point. And then Falcon has to fight Thunderbolt Ross, who becomes the Hulk at a press conference finally, while detaining the leader. You got all that? So, it's a very convoluted, confusing plot. Like, it just to see it play out, it's like it was hard to see the cause and effect of everything. There's times when I think they know that, and they literally have the characters stop and explain things to the audience, like, as they're doing them. And so it's so confusing, and it's like it's like they know that it's a bad plot, and like, how are they possibly going to explain it to the audience? And there's one point in the movie, there's so many little things, like, it's confusing because it's like, how did the leader know that they were going to take Isaiah Bradley to the White House, and how did he set up this program to condition super soldiers to react to this music under mind control? And they talk about that in one scene, and Sam Wilson is just like, well, he must have been watching us. I'm like, okay, and how would he conduct all of that from watching you for a few days? Like, he knew he was going to be there. How did he condition him? How did he plan all this? Did I miss something? How did Isaiah get a gun? And it's like, they just leave it at that. They don't have any other explanation. It is such, like, the plot, it's in and of itself is like so simple. The leader wants revenge on Ross, who is president, and he's been feeding him pills that he's been taking to keep himself alive of radiation poisoning so that he will become the Red Hulk. Like, that's simple, but the way that the movie portrays it is just so convoluted and confusing. It's like my dad said, it feels like there's entire sequences missing from the film, and I agree. I also would argue that it feels like this is multiple films slashed together, you can tell, because some people have been really praising the acting. I think that some of the actors are like giving it their all when it comes to emotion, but what it really felt like to me is that there were, like, at one point this movie was going to be something much more darker, serious, and angry, like the first 5 episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier were, and then they, of course, changed that, and so then you get more of a jokey movie spliced in there. So it felt like at one point that actors were really given, like, really intense, dramatic performances, and the next minute it was much more lighthearted. And so it feels like there was just, like, this is multiple cuts of a film spliced together, which we know that is what went on behind the scenes. Even the people working on this movie in articles are saying, yeah, we knew it was going to be bad because this was, like, the worst production, the most tumultuous production that has happened behind the scenes. My goodness, I've already talked forever about the plot, but I've got so much left. The real problem with the movie, though, is not even the plot. Even though this is the worst writing that I've ever seen cobbled together in an MCU film, even worse, or if not on par with the Marvels, the problem is the characters. This is where you really see the MCU fall from what it originally used to be, is what even the worst MCU movies at least had characters you like. If you compare this to, like, the Winter Soldier, and, like, it's easy to compare it because it's ripping off so many other elements from the Captain America movies. It's like Captain America Winter Soldier, Steve Rogers is constantly going through a character development. He's constantly having development. He's struggling with personal stuff. He's having an arc in that film that is thoughtful in regards to who he is, where he comes from, and what world he's in now, which is kind of what this movie wants to be about. But Sam Wilson does not have an arc in this film, and he doesn't have any development. He doesn't even have a character in this film. It's like, you know that Steve Rogers is the guy who was once a little guy who is never backing down from a fight. He will lay on a grenade to save you. But it's like, who is Sam Wilson? He's just a guy who does this because, and he's trying to do his best because he's a good guy, apparently. Once again, he doesn't have an arc in the film. He has a moment later on in the movie where he has a little crisis of faith, but it's very generic. Like, anyone could have a crisis of faith taking on this role. And they go there's a scene at the end with him and his new Falcon that just goes on forever, where they're talking about how hard it is to just live up to expectation. It goes on forever, but it's nothing specific to his character. It's just very tacked on, and, like, this could be anybody who's having this feeling. Like, I don't know who Sam Wilson is. I don't, like they got rid of, like, he's more of his jokey self, like the Falcon originally was. They've kind of moved on mostly from the Falcon and Winter Soldier stuff, but it's like, I don't know who he is, and so I'm not invested in anything that happens to him. Like, and I don't understand why he doesn't take the super soldier serum. There's a scene when he is having his crisis of faith where Bucky Barnes comes up and is like, you don't need to take the serum. You don't need to prove yourself. And it's like, well, you do, kind of, because as we see multiple times throughout the film, he is not strong enough to, like, physically to handle any of the battles. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's ridiculous. Why doesn't he take the serum? If anything, just so hopefully he can survive a punch a little bit better from all these people that he's fighting. It doesn't make any sense, but What really bothered me when Bucky came in a scene in the film is that the entire rationale of not having Bucky be the new Captain America like he became first in the comics, unlike Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson, is that, Winter Soldier was an assassin. He has all that baggage behind him. It's like, fair enough, and that's why it made more sense for Sam Wilson to take on the role. But here, we find out Bucky Barnes is running for Congress, and he's in Congress? What? This is the guy in the Marvel Cinematic Universe who assassinated JFK and that he got voted into Congress? If you're saying, I can better believe him being Captain America and working by himself than being in Congress, this makes no sense. I hate what they've done here, and the real problem is they have not proven that Sam Wilson was the right choice for Captain America, because they haven't proven, he was always the jokey sidekick, at least the MCU version was. He doesn't have, he's not presented with any sort of depth or even real character in this, and it's like they were so enamored with the idea of having Sam Wilson be Captain America, they didn't ever think about what they were going to do with him, and that shows not only in the lack of development, but in the lack of a supporting cast. It's all Hulk characters. Anyway, I'm going to be here forever if I go through everything. So, he has a new Falcon, and once again, this character, Joaquin, played by Danny Ramirez, I think, he has no character. He's just the jokey sidekick. He talks about, the only thing we get from him, he's talking about how he always wanted to be an Avenger. He always wanted to be like Falcon. And he has no character. You don't know who he is. I don't care about anyone in this movie because I don't know who they are. And that's where the MCU's strength always was in its characters and characters development. That even if they came out with a movie that wasn't that great, the characters and the development was still there. And that is completely gone in this movie. Also, I gotta say, one of the worst parts of this movie is the character Sabra, I think, who's supposed to be a Black Widow. The problem is they cast a woman who looks like she's 3 apples tall, she's shorter than anyone else, and it just stands out so much. And so when she's like the security agent that's trying to be intimidating, or she's Black Widowing around and beating people up, it looks so unreal. It looks ridiculous. When I first heard criticism against this character, I thought, it's probably just people complaining that because even in fantasy settings, they don't like to see women in action roles. And it's like, I've just never had a problem with that. I just think it's fantasy. But here is where I understand what they're saying, where I'm even having a problem. If it looks like I could beat up somebody, if I could beat up the woman that they're convincing me is this Black Widow agent, then that's not a good sign. That was just terrible. The action scenes in this movie also are just, this is it. This is the worst action I've ever seen in an MCU film. That's not an exaggeration. That's not being hyperbolic. The director of this movie, apparently he did the Cloverfield Paradox. He does not have a lot of experience. And you can really tell that. And when there's an action scene, it's like it's in slow motion, and the choreography is really slow and awkward. It looks like a fan film that didn't even have an action choreographer on it. It looks really slow. It does not convince me of Sam Wilson as Captain America, especially as I'm ever being reminded that he did not take the serum in it, and he looks like he's not capable of doing any of this stuff. When they do sort of the Winter Soldier ripoff moment where it looks like there's going to be an assassin for him, it looks like the Winter Soldier car chase was done by professional, experienced filmmakers, and this looks like it was done by student filmmakers. It's just the action is so awkward and terrible to watch. And there isn't even camera work or editing, because sometimes they can use camera work and quick motions with the camera or editing to fool you into think that the action is good, even though it's just distracting your brain. That's not even that there. It looks like B-roll footage with how bad it is. So yeah, the directing is really bad in this movie. It feels really amateurish TV level, there was not a lot of experience behind the scenes, which there wasn't if you check out the IMDb of it all. But the worst thing, the Hulk fight in the movie, the thing that they were really advertising in this movie is the Hulk fight. That stopped me short. That is the worst superhero fight that I've ever seen in anything, because via its very conception, it doesn't work. Captain America versus Hulk is hard because Captain America shouldn't be able to defeat Hulk. There's a reason why he's called the Hulk. Remember the Avengers, and when the Hulk comes out and Black Widow is running for her life because she can't do anything against him. You needed Thor to come in and defeat him. Sam Wilson with gadgets and no soldier serum does not stand a chance. And the people working on the film apparently knew that. So they do everything they can to try to enhance him. They explained that he did a favor for the Wakandans, so he has a vibranium suit now. But the fight between him and the Hulk mostly amounts to him running away or trying to scratch him with his falcon wings. That is the fight. It is so embarrassing because they don't actually fight. It's like someone trying to run away and maybe throw some scratches with his wings, and he can't defeat him. So how do they make Sam Wilson defeat the Hulk in the end when he literally cannot physically do so? They make him give him a speech to do better.
You've got to do better, Senator.
I'm not making that up. He gives Ross a speech about how, you've done some bad things in the past, but you're trying to be better, and I can tell that, and you just need to hold on to that, and that's what makes him shrink down and stops the Hulk. Literally the lamest fight I have ever seen. Like at one point, because they do it that Thunderbolt is trying to reconnect with his daughter Betty. I'm at least glad Betty Ross wasn't forgotten. And at one point I thought, oh, they're going to have her come out and calm him down because Betty Ross calms down the Hulk, right? But as it was coming to Sam doing it, I was like, as cheesy as it would have been, I would have rather it was Betty doing that because it was so cringy when they made Sam do that. They've just made Sam into a character that somehow magically defeats people by giving speeches. It's so embarrassing. They do not know what to do with Sam Wilson as Captain America. And that is just evident in everything that they've done with him. So, and lastly, like the leader. The leader is like such a phoned in performance. Phoned in acting from, who is it, Tim Blake Nelson, phoned in makeup. He felt like a CW villain in this movie. And you watch this and it's an hour and 58 minutes long. You feel every second of it. It's not like a Marvel movie. It goes back to why I think that trying to do Sam Wilson as Captain America was a problem. It's not that you couldn't do it. There is a problem that I don't think that his character has the depth or is interesting enough to pull this off as a leading man role. And I think that especially now. But like the way people say it happened in the comics. When Sam Wilson became Captain America in the comics, it was during the all new, all different era. And the problem with that era, it was a bunch of people who didn't know superhero comics, who didn't care about them, but saw that the MCU was popular, and this was commissioned, I think, by Disney to try to like drum up a new diverse cast for the Avengers, so that eventually they could adopt that into the MCU. And Sam Wilson as Captain America was a part of that. And it's worked before when you had experienced writers work on comic book characters they cared about to introduce legacy versions of characters and even, more diverse legacy versions of characters. But none of these writers understood comic books, characters, and as they were introducing these characters, they didn't give them any story. Sales dropped, and when people criticized that these characters like Riri Williams and whatnot were not very good, they just got called bigots and alt-right bigots. Like you get called online these days if you criticize shows and stuff. And like that's the problem with Sam Wilson as Captain America. Once again, you can make things work. It's hard. You have to acknowledge that when you're passing the baton, it's hard to get it to work. But it's like this was done with the intention of, we're going to do this. The most important thing is the idea of this. And we're not going to listen to any criticism or any potential red flags in doing this. Like, it's going to be difficult because Sam was the jokey sidekick. He doesn't have necessarily the depth. It's going to be hard. So there was nothing for them from the comics to work with. But really the core problem with it all, as it was in the comics, is it feels like people who don't understand comics, they don't understand superhero movies, all they can do is mime them. Like, this felt like it was a miming of Captain America movies with how much it ripped off and now did badly. It's like Nate Moore saying that the comic books are dated and we need to work with people who don't know the comics. And that's really what the MCU has become. Like, you see the What If show and all that. It's like a bunch of OCs now, or OC versions of characters that people who think that they know better can work on and bring to life and just get all the money from it and all the success because MCU is popular without understanding what made these characters work, what made the universe work, and like what these things are even supposed to be. And I don't think that the problems with Marvel are so easily remedied as I thought. And because I look at the future and it doesn't look like anything different. Maybe the next film will be more coherent than this one. But I think that the problems with the MCU run a lot deeper than that. They need to stop making movies. I don't want to see Thunderbolts. I mean, I'll have to see it. I don't want to see a Fantastic Four movie right now. I do not want them to attempt to adapt any of the X-Men right now. And I don't even know how it was going to work because they say they're being fluid with it. I'm like, so many of the X-Men characters are supposed to be so old. Like, how do you even adapt that into this? Like, you can't, they're introducing adamantium and saying that that'll eventually lead into Wolverine. Has he existed all this time, or they just bring them up now? But they've proven that they've lost the tone of the MCU. They've lost who these characters are. They don't have any good characters going forward. There's a horrible post-credit scene at the end of Sam Wilson talking to the leader, and he's like, ooh, the multiverse is coming. And it's like, Kevin, please stop on the multiverse stuff. We're sick of it. We don't want to watch it. Going into Doomsday, though, it's going to be who? Sam Wilson, Captain America, who has no character anymore, who's going to be leading the Avengers. It's going to be character assassinated Chris Hemsworth, maybe Chris Evans as an evil version of himself, Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom, the Thunderbolts, a bunch of characters no one cares about, and a Fantastic Four that we don't even know is going to be successful. The reason why the original Avengers worked is they set up characters that you cared about and led into bigger events. Now they're trying to build stuff off of characters that you absolutely have no interest in, that they've forced down your throat into these big event films. And it's gonna bomb. It's all gonna bomb. And here's the problem with this is they're saying that it's getting better box office than was expected. My foot is so asleep right now. I am so sorry, you guys. My leg is so asleep. I know I'm doing this off the cuff, but the problem with it is that if a lot of people see this movie, it's going to be like the people walking out of my theater who said that that was the worst thing ever. All it's going to do, the more people can watch a bad movie, a lot of people can watch it, it's just going to make people go like, I don't want to see the next Marvel movie. I don't want to see Thunderbolts. I don't want to go see Fantastic Four. Especially when I came out of the movie, I'm like, I don't want to see another Spider-Man movie. What, you're going to do a Spider-Man 4 with more Tom Holland and Zendaya that's going to be the director of Shang-Chi, and you think that's going to work? I don't want to see more of that. I want to just, like, enjoy the original comics and Marvel rivals. I don't want there to be more MCU propaganda out there because it's just going to taint the brand even more with all this bad stuff, and you need to stop. You need to stop. You need to stop and think about what you're doing. You need to get new blood in there. I'm coming around to people's idea that Kevin Feige, he's done this for too long. He's set in his ways. He can't let go of his stuff. He can't let go of his multiverse stuff. We need new people involved, and sometimes that requires stopping. What a novel concept. Stop with the superhero movies and reevaluate where you're going, because every new bad film you release just damages your reputation even more to the point where people aren't going to want to see any of this anymore. Yeah, it made me not hopeful for anything in the MCU's future. It made me wish I hadn't seen it. It made me sad to think about the wonderful movies. Captain America Winter Soldier was one of my greatest experiences in the theater, one of my favorite movies of all time, what I think is one of the best action movies ever made. And to see this ape that and tarnish it and misunderstand it so much just feels so bad. And I just feel so bad to see how far these characters have fallen and to see how Disney has gone from a place where they were making great MCU movies and great Marvel films, and now they're just continuously tarnishing the reputation of these characters and Marvel as a whole. Is what it is, I guess. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, patrons. The only thing keeping me going is practicing on my own filmmaking so that I can hopefully one day make something good. If you'll please check out my short film list. I really would like to get my latest short film to 5,000 views, and it's almost there. Thank you all for watching. I guess I'll see you guys next time.